Well, hey,
Hey, how's your week?
it's been good. It's been kind of busy. How's yours been?
Good.
Yeah.
It's busy already and it's Wednesday only,
Mm-hmm.
so I am
Earlier, go ahead.
I am taking off Friday.
Oh, you are?
So, just have a lot to do, like getting my car serviced,
Yeah.
um, going to the doctor. Like I've just got a lot to
Did
do.
you
So
take half a day last week?
I did.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
did. So I was going to work in my yard. I ended up working in my yard some on Saturday. Saturday morning, I went hiking. And then after that, worked in my yard. And I don't know, guys, I can feel my age.
Yeah.
Like I drug those 2 cubic foot bags. I don't know how much they weigh. Of course, my son was making fun of me,
Of
but
bark? Yeah. They're
yes,
heavy.
mulch. I want to say it was 40 pounds. It may be more,
Yeah.
but they were wet too, which made
Mm-hmm.
it worse. But I put out 12 of those.
Mm-hmm.
So my son luckily went to Home Depot with me, helped me load it, all that. And then when he got back, he has a truck. So I said, I'll just grab them out of the truck and put them out. I have scrapes and scratches all up my arms where I had rose bush like
Yes, the
thorns
thorns.
in there. But anyway, I got
Was your
it all
back sore?
done. Yes, and my legs
Mm-hmm.
from bending over and picking that up,
Right. Yeah.
but I got all that done. So now I'm on a corner lot. So now I have to do the entire side and the entire front, but I got the back done,
Yeah.
which was a big job.
Yeah. I've had to move those before from my
Mm.
front yard to my backyard. And it's even a lot of work when you open them and pour them out.
Oh,
So you're
yes.
carrying them, but I just put sod on the side of my house.
Mm,
So I went and got some. I don't know what the squares normally look like, but these that I got were fairly big and they were pretty deep. They were
mhm.
so heavy, I couldn't carry 2 at a time.
Oh, my
And I
word.
had 20. This is the second time I went. So I had to grab one from my driveway, carry it to the side of my house, drop them down, and after about 7 or 8, I could just feel it in my lower back.
Yes, and you've been to my house.
Mhm.
I've got this really long bed of like rose bushes and a couple of other bushes on the back. And then I've got 2 huge beds that are
Mhm.
like, half circle or whatever around these Japanese maples that I have. And those were the last ones I was doing. And by the end, I was just having some very serious self talk. Like, okay, we have
Yeah,
4 left.
right.
Okay, we have 3 left. Okay, we have 2 left. One more. You can do it.
Well, it makes you appreciate the people that do yard work and what we pay them.
Yes. What they charge
Yeah.
is crazy, but now I know why. But
Did you finish Love on the Spectrum?
I
You
did.
did? So you
I
finished it
did.
last night?
I did.
Okay.
It
Well, good, so we
was
can
so
talk about it.
good. We can. It's so good.
Yeah, it's so if y'all haven't watched it, you need to fast forward or something because this is going to be some spoilers, although it'll be a few weeks late by the time
Yeah.
this airs. But, so episode 6 and 7, the end of 6, when Tyler was proposing to Madison,
Yes.
I was bawling,
Yes.
bawling.
And she could not stop saying, I can't believe
Yeah,
this. And I don't believe this. I can't believe this. And, Logan, I told you this, Logan is a new
yeah,
favorite.
he's great.
And I was really, really sad at the end to see that he and Haley were no
Yeah.
longer dating. And then Connor and Georgie were no longer
Yes.
dating.
You
Like
could kinda see that coming.
yeah, they set it up really well.
Right.
But I loved them
Mhm.
together. I just think they have different personalities,
Yeah.
just like normal people,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
anyway, it is such a feel good show. It's so good. I love how they're so honest. We've talked about
yeah,
that, but especially Emma, and she went on that first date. I thought he is so cute, and they just were so precious
yeah,
together. And then she's like, I think we should just be friends.
right. We watched that one together, and I
We
was just out
did.
on the patio like, "No, please don't."
I know. And then she meets
Yeah,
another
he's
guy,
great.
and
He's
he's
great,
great.
and he's more her personality
Yeah.
too.
And Dylan,
Yeah.
I was worried about him as soon as he said, I want to love you the rest of my life or something on the first date. I'm like, ooh, been there.
So funny. When, Landon and Haley went to the ghost town or whatever, Blake and I were watching that episode, and when they went to open up the freezer where the ice cream was supposed to be and it was
Mhm.
snakes in there, we both jumped and screamed. That's hilarious. And then he's like, I was scared. He's like, "Oh, is that Jonas Brothers?" And just died laughing.
Immediately.
Yeah.
And I think Eden and I watched part of that together. And when she said, um, he said, "Do you want to kiss me or whatever?" And then she said, "Do you want some more?" I mean, they are so
They are.
funny.
Y'all have to watch it.
You
Y'all
have to if you haven't. But
It's the best show.
anyway,
I won't harp on this long because we've said it a million times, but it's just another reminder how so much more mature they can be than us
absolutely.
and how they communicate, even though they have trouble communicating or
Mhm.
expressing their feelings. We do too. I mean, really, I think it's just more normalized for how we do it and how, screwed up we can be. It's just kind of normal. But they just do such a great job. And even at the end, when they were at the engagement party, I got upset watching it. And I was telling Jeffrey this that seeing how happy they were, like I
Mhm.
feel like I'm going to get choked up talking about it. When they were all arriving and seeing how happy they were for their friends
Mhm.
and how excited they were to see
Mhm.
each other the whole night long. And even when Connor was talking about breaking up with Georgie, and they were so like comforting to him.
Mhm.
And I just thought, as a whole, why can we not be more happy for people?
Yeah, and they're so direct.
Yes.
And he was, going through the motions with his mom, like, what am I going to say if they ask me these things? And then he says, tell the truth,
Yeah.
tell the
Yeah.
God's honest truth. And he did, but he did it in a way that was very loving. We have a tendency
He
to,
wasn't bashing Georgie.
that's right. We have a
Mhm.
tendency to want to deflect and say,
Yes.
oh, they're lost and this and
Right.
that
Yeah.
and go on and on. And he just said, I'm not for her and she's not for me. But they're so blunt and so direct. And I wish that we could be that way
Same.
more.
Same. But I just thought it was really touching how they were so excited for their friends. There was no jealousy, there was
Mm-hmm.
no animosity, no hard feelings. Connor could have pouted and not wanted to
Mm-hmm.
go because he had just broken up, or
Mm-hmm.
the other couples that were there. I mean, Abby and David, kind of they say they weren't ready and then they talk about getting married, but any of us could have gone and just been a little bit jealous or envious,
Mm-hmm.
and they weren't. It's a
Yeah.
great show. Y'all got to watch it.
Yes.
Please, please, please.
So tonight we are going to visit an old favorite,
An old friend.
an old friend, and we love talking about women's health. I
Mhm.
know we've talked about it quite a bit. We've talked every season at least once about it, but it is something that not only is a big issue, but it's also an issue that continues to change
Mhm.
year after year as you start going through health issues or facing a new phase of life.
Right.
So I'm glad that we're talking about it and I'm glad that you let me get it out, because that's one of my things.
Yeah, I know it is, and like you said, it's ever changing, but it's always present,
Mhm.
and so I think it helps to talk about it, or at least just hear someone else's thoughts and their perspective and things that they're going through. Anyway,
Well, starting off with the biggest rock there is to move, hormonal health and menopause.
yeah,
That is the biggest challenge, I believe, for women, especially of our age.
absolutely.
And I would say anywhere from 40 to 60 primarily.
Right.
That's going to be the sweet spot. Um, Perimenopause, so you're even having symptoms before you actually are in full blown
Yeah.
menopause, as you're well aware. Um, they're poorly managed. The symptoms are poorly managed. And I believe that that's twofold. I think sometimes people don't recognize because it's kind of a slow burn.
Yeah, sure.
They don't recognize that something is actually going
Mhm.
on. They just think, gosh, I was up a lot last night, or gosh, I'm biting the head off of everybody. I don't know why I'm so ill.
Or I'm just 40 and getting
Yeah.
old.
And just kind of brushing it to the side. So I think we do wait too long to bring it to our healthcare providers. But as we've talked about in the past, when you bring it to them, there really isn't a solution. They give you a pill or say you're whiny
Yeah.
or, well, that's just what happens. And they don't really, there's not enough education
Right.
about it.
I think today women enter menopause earlier than they
Agreed.
used to. So for me, when I started perimenopause at 38, why would I have thought that I was entering
Mm-hmm.
perimenopause at 38? It
Mm-hmm.
never occurred to me. And I didn't know that for about 3 years
Mm-hmm.
until I had other symptoms that made it obvious that's what I was going through. But who thinks they're going to start that in their late 30s when my mother and my grandmother didn't?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't really expect it. It's not on your radar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. And I think we've said this on a previous podcast that MDs typically get about 4 to 6 weeks worth of women's health,
Mhm.
aka perimenopause, menopause training in all of their years, and it is such a big issue. I know you and I and my mom were actually riding somewhere this past summer
Mhm.
and we talked about it. My mom had a history of breast cancer in our family. So, not my mother, but her mother. And her doctors had immediately shunned the idea of anything no estrogen, no progesterone, no nothing because of all the black box risks for increase of breast cancer.
Mhm.
And come to find out, all those studies were incorrect and were on the wrong subsection of women. It just did a huge disservice to an entire generation.
Yeah.
I'm not a physician.
Yes.
Caveat,
Disclaimer.
we are not physicians. We are not even in the healthcare field. We are only speaking from experience
Yes.
and our opinion.
Mhm.
But I will say I don't know enough about it, and we'd love to hear from you if you are in the healthcare field. I had a wonderful doctor. I loved her, went to her for 20 years, but kept feeling bad and went to a different functional medicine person. She's a nurse practitioner. She ran a bunch of labs on me. Thyroid's off, testosterone's off, progesterone's off,
Mhm.
estrogen is too low, and I was already taking estrogen. So apparently, not everything is created equal, which creates confusion.
I've got some printouts today because, again, we're speaking from experience. So I'm just sharing my experience with everyone. And a lot of this is just going to be follow up for me because I talked about it a little bit last year when I was having some blood work done and the doctors that I was going to. We all know that Jeffrey and I started seeing a nutritionist
Mhm.
last fall. And I started in September and I finished after we wrapped the
Mhm.
season.
Mhm.
So I finished at the beginning of December. I have a printout that I just wanted to share with everyone just to kind of let people know the numbers and how difficult it can still be. And I know everyone's going to think I'm crazy for this. And I just always get so emotional on here. But I think sometimes it's so frustrating for me because you feel like, why am I doing this?
Mhm.
If if this is like such a slow process and is anything that I'm doing really making that much of a difference
Yeah.
to where it's going to keep me off of medication, if I can say off of medication. And some lab work I got back yesterday, so it's really fresh for me. It may be a little
Mhm.
too soon, but it like ruined my day yesterday.
Oh, no.
So anyway, I'm just gonna kind of share some things with everyone. But so when I started seeing the nutritionist, she ran like a body composition
Mhm.
analysis on me on that machine. So in that 3 months, I dropped 3 pounds
Mhm.
and I gained 1 pound of muscle
Okay.
and I dropped 4 pounds of fat. Okay.
Excellent.
So what I ended up losing was 2% of body fat.
Mhm.
And while I appreciate you saying, "Oh, that's awesome," I was very disappointed because when you feel like you're eating well for 3 months, and at that time, I was doing my strength training, like, at least 4 days a week, okay?
Yeah.
Some days 5. And so you feel like 3 months of that I should have dropped more than 3 pounds and gained more than a pound of muscle.
Well,
Well,
I would like to pause and
okay,
interrupt you right
okay.
there because I am results oriented
Oh, same.
and I completely understand being frustrated and feeling like I'm putting all this effort in. I'm watching everything that goes in my mouth.
Right.
Although you weren't counting calories, you are in a way counting calories because you're not eating M&Ms for
Yeah, you're
breakfast. You're eating
right,
avocado and whole grain toast and these things, right? You're
right.
making better choices and you're working out. But I will say, not as your friend. I'm saying this as a person with eyeballs. You don't have more than 3 pounds of body fat to lose.
Well,
I mean, and I'm not saying that because I'm your best friend and I'm trying to hype you up. I'm saying you don't have any 3 pounds to lose.
but the numbers say I do, and
Okay.
that's what I shared last.
Yes.
If I'm honest with myself, I would say I gave myself probably, and I'm being generous, 80% of my max. When I
Mhm.
was working out,
Mhm.
I probably did about 80% of what I could do,
Mhm.
and eating, I probably was 80% better. If I wanted a piece of cake, I had a piece of cake,
Yeah.
or if I wanted bread, I had bread. I just changed the type of bread. I was
Mhm.
eating white bread or even just plain wheat. I was eating the seeded, kinda
Mhm.
whole grain bread and things like that, tried to substitute yogurt or cottage cheese for mayonnaise, things like that. But
Mhm.
I'm not going to ever totally give up anything.
No.
Now, I rarely eat like chips and that kind of stuff anymore, but
Mhm.
you get my point.
I do.
It's just you think you're going to have more progress than what you did. And I'm not trying to make this sound like it was a negative experience because I did learn a lot. I did learn that I don't have to weigh myself every day to make progress. I did
Mhm.
learn that I don't have to track my calories to still have progress. But what I also learned is, you cannot out exercise a bad
You
diet. You
cannot.
can't do it.
You can't.
Maybe when you're 20, but when
Mm-mm.
you get to our age, even in your 40s, you're not going to be able to exercise enough to overcome a bad diet. It's just not
Exactly.
going to happen.
You cannot outwork the kitchen.
You
You
can't.
can't do it.
Jeffrey and I obviously had to pay this nutritionist for her time, and we did learn a lot, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're not going to use the
Mhm.
knowledge that you've been given.
Yeah, it's up to you.
It's exactly up to you.
Yeah.
So, you know, uh, yeah, we had or I'll speak for myself, yes, I had a nutritionist and yes, I did learn these things, but I also know that I didn't give it my 100% through that 3 months. So I can kind of blame myself for not having bigger results than what I had. But at the same time, I do think that a lot of it does have to do with your hormones,
It
obviously,
absolutely does.
obviously. So, but like you said, I think it would help people if we knew the whys of everything.
Mhm.
And that's kind of my personality anyway. After I had my appointment with my cardiologist yesterday, and I'll get into it in a minute. But my point is so, like, for instance, a lot of beans
Mhm.
helps lower your cholesterol because beans attach to cholesterol molecules in your digestive tract.
Mhm.
Well, maybe all of y'all know that, but
I
I didn't know
didn't.
that. But they'll give you a list and say, oh, these are the things that you need to help lower your cholesterol. And on it'll be beans and legumes and nuts and all that. Well, that's great. Okay, so you're telling me that. But when I know that it attaches to cholesterol molecules,
Right.
which helps flush out of your system,
Mhm.
to me, that's a light bulb that goes off in my head.
Mhm.
And, I'm telling myself, oh, this is, going to attach to these cholesterol molecules. And so it makes sense when you know the whys of
Yeah.
everything and not just this is what you need to do. And because maybe I don't wanna eat beans that day,
Mhm.
but if I tell myself it's cleaning out, it's fiber, the fiber doesn't get ingested in your system, which I knew that, but I think we have to take it a little step farther and educate people on
Mhm.
how the body actually works.
So we already talked about, like, limited provider education, conflicting guidance on hormone therapy. One thing I'll say is I was told by my previous provider, because I'd had a hysterectomy when I was younger,
Mhm.
that I did not need progesterone.
Right.
And then this new medical provider said that is not true. That's more of an old school way of
The one
thought.
you're seeing now?
Hmm. And she put me on progesterone. And wham bam, I'm sleeping at night. The next one on my list, believe it or not, which I don't think it's talked about enough, is heart disease in women because it's the number one cause of death in women. But I think we see things like the Susan G. Komen, breast cancer awareness, all these things, everybody wearing pink for
Yeah.
October. I know that that's important. And I personally know a lot of people that have been affected by breast
Yeah.
cancer. But I think men and women can look different with heart disease. And I think a lot of times you don't really want to believe you're like, oh, you're having a panic attack or
Right.
oh, you're being hysterical.
Right.
And it's the number one killer of women.
Yeah.
And they have different symptoms than men.
Right.
So I think that's another thing is they're less likely to be diagnosed early or treated aggressively by the medical community. Thought was interesting.
I just still think that we should have some sort of full body check. If not once a year, once every 2 years. I think
Agreed.
once every 5 years is even too long, but for us to, have insurance pay for an annual mammogram, an annual pap smear, our
A PET
teeth to
scan.
our teeth to get clean twice a year, an eye appointment is covered with insurance once a year, but I'm just really worried about brain
Mhm.
function in
Mhm.
the coming years, especially with, the way Alzheimer's and dementia seems to be growing. I just don't understand why that's not a more talked about thing. Maybe it is, and just because it hasn't directly affected my family that I know of, I can't
Mhm.
think of anyone.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm just uneducated on it, and maybe it's out there and I just don't know about it. But
Yeah.
I would like to be checked periodically for
Mhm.
that.
Well, and imagine even you mentioned 5 years is too long. I agree with you. But imagine even if we did PET scans every 5
Right.
years, what could be prevented?
Sure.
Some people are ticking time bombs and they've had cancer in their body and they didn't know it.
Right.
Prime example is my mother. She had kidney cancer. She's got chronic health issues anyway, but kept having chronic bronchitis, could not get rid of it. And so when she was at the doctor, they said, we need to do another chest x ray or chest scan. And they accidentally scanned too low
Hmm.
and found kidney cancer.
Wow.
And she had a huge mass. So the physician said that typically that type of cancer grows about a half a centimeter a year. It was 7.5 centimeters.
Wow.
So she had had it for 15 years. Praise the Lord that it was contained in the one kidney and had not yet spread. She got clear margins on all of her lymph nodes when they went in and removed the kidney. But imagine if they had caught that at 5
Right.
years.
Yeah.
And, it's things like that that are slow growing and
Right.
maybe it hasn't metastasized yet. But I don't know because cancer is so expensive to treat and it's so devastating to families and patients. I don't know why we don't make that a part of regular protocol and have it every few years.
I agree. I have a friend who is taking chemo pills
Hmm.
right now. She has been taking them. And the amount that it cost for those pills, they had to fight to get the insurance to cover it.
Mhm.
It is thousands and thousands of dollars. If you have to fight and fight and fight, and then the insurance eventually ends up paying it or it gets covered, why? Why is that happening?
Mhm.
If it's going to get covered anyway, it's like they're rolling the dice to see who's gonna fight hard enough to have that paid for. Because if they don't, then they either don't take the medication or I'm assuming they do something else that's less expensive that is not as effective. I don't know, that's just my
Yeah.
assumption, but it's the same thing with my dad's pill that he has to take,
Mhm.
and I was with him today. I did ask him that idiopathic pulmonary
Mhm.
fibrosis. We were talking the other night, and I
Mhm.
was having a blank, but same thing with the amount that that pill costs. No one can afford that. Why is it set at that price to begin with? Is
Well,
what's really annoying.
you can hear stories every day about people going to the doctor and, "Oh, my son broke his arm." And I said, "Oh, he's gotta have an MRI or
Right.
whatever." And how much is the MRI? "Oh, your part is gonna be $1,700 after insurance." "Oh, okay. Well, how much if I just pay cash?" "Well, the MRI, or whatever it is,
Mm.
CAT scan, whatever, $300." So, insurance companies are driving this up. And I won't get into that either because that's a whole nother road,
Mhm.
but it's not sustainable. We're slowly eliminating the middle class with people that are going to inevitably have health issues and are not gonna be able to pay for the treatment. Moving on
Yes,
before
moving
I
on.
get crazy.
I had to go see my cardiologist on Monday
Mhm.
because it was my checkup, okay? And we know that I stopped my statins last year because I wanted to be off of them.
And I'm so glad you did.
So, when I saw him I think I saw him in August.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I had been off my statins for, like, 8 months, and at the time, my primary care physician had done my lab work. I'm sure I talked about all this last season, I just don't remember. So, my cardiologist said, "Come back in 6 months," which is why I was there yesterday. So, we only checked my cholesterol yesterday while I was there. My results already came back. I didn't expect them to come back until the end of the
Mhm.
week, so I really didn't plan on talking about this until yesterday. I really expected my cholesterol to go down a little bit, and to backtrack, my cholesterol came way down when I was taking statins, like, over 100 points. Okay, that's
Wow.
how high it was,
Uh-huh.
and then I stopped the statins, and it went back up, and but that's right when I was starting
The
seeing the
nutritionist.
nutritionist and trying to work out and eat better, so I asked my cardiologist if he would give me 6 months, and let's check everything then. My phone rings yesterday, and I didn't get to it, and I looked, and I saw it was his office, and I was like,
Oh, no.
"They never call you if it's normal." So I immediately logged in and looked at my labs, and I finally talked to her today, the nurse. My cholesterol dropped 3 points.
It was those 3 pounds of body
Yeah.
fat.
I'll just tell y'all, my cholesterol was 282.
Mhm.
So it went down to 279, and my LDL in August of last year was 193, which is extremely high. It's pretty high. And yesterday it was 194. So it actually went up one, which is not good. So I was very upset when I saw this.
Sure.
And you talk about a mood shift. I could feel myself getting upset after
Yeah.
because I immediately logged in to look at my numbers. And I thought, why am I doing this? Now I don't even want to work
Right.
out.
Right.
Why am I doing this?
Why am I
Because
running?
I still don't enjoy working out. I have to
Mhm.
make myself do it.
Mhm.
Yeah, walking is great and I can get out in my neighborhood, but even running on that treadmill for 12 minutes now is what I'm up to. I don't enjoy doing it. I'm
Mhm.
really having to make myself do it.
Mhm.
And I keep telling myself what I heard Jolie McLeod, who I've told you about,
Mhm.
say is at first you don't have to be addicted to working out or you don't have to enjoy working out. You have to enjoy how it makes you feel.
Mhm.
And so I have to keep telling myself, Lisa, you're going to feel better after you work out. You always feel better. But as far as just the pounds go, I ended up losing, where did I fit? 3 pounds. So
Mhm.
just maybe I said that 3 pounds.
Mhm.
Now, from that, and that was in December, I'm down almost 2 pounds from this.
Mhm.
Okay. So I've still lost another 2 pounds.
Mhm.
And I can tell a little bit in my clothes. I'm
Mhm.
starting to tell a little bit in my clothes, which is fine. After I sat down and looked over these labs a little bit closer, it also will list your triglycerides, which isn't included in the cholesterol number, but it is included with that lab work. So my triglycerides in August was at 172, which is considered high,
Mhm.
and my triglycerides Monday was 138. So
Wow,
it
that's a
went down
huge difference.
20%.
Yeah.
When the nurse called me back today, she, of course, said, he wants to know if you're willing
No.
to get put back on a low dose statin.
No.
So I told her, I know the cholesterol didn't move much, but my triglycerides were down 20%. And when you Google that, it you can lower that by diet and exercise and cutting out a lot of refined carbs and sugar and all that. I said, with it being down 20% since August, something's working.
Mhm.
And maybe it will be a snowball effect. I don't know how much that will affect the LDL,
Mhm.
because I think it just, all of that works a little bit differently. But if I am losing a little bit of body fat and a little bit of weight and my triglycerides are down 20%, can I have a little bit more time
Mhm.
just to see if anything changes? Another thing that I asked her was, I said, maybe he can't tell me because it's not his specialty, but what does he think about me getting back on HRT?
Mhm.
And if I'm getting that estrogen back in my body, because estrogen does affect
It
cholesterol.
does.
So if I can get back on that, because I've been off for a couple of years,
Mhm.
can we try that?
Yeah.
So if I have a little bit more time, and then if he's good with me, maybe starting that again, because I'm more willing to do the HRT
Yes.
versus statins because I look at it like my body is not producing estrogen like it did.
Correct.
And there's nothing I can eat that's going to change that
That's right.
or the progesterone or testosterone, any of that.
Mhm.
So I'm more willing, I've always been more willing to take medication for that because otherwise you're not getting any of what you need.
Agreed.
And I don't really know what a negative side effect would be. Now, I get if you're taking estrogen without the progesterone, and depending on a lot of cases, like if you haven't had a hysterectomy, or if you had, and I know all of that is taken into account. But for me, I would prefer to just be back on that and see if it works versus getting on a statin that can have negative side effects. Doesn't
Mhm.
mean that it will, but it can. But I will say, when I was on it, it really did lower my cholesterol a lot.
Mhm.
But I just don't want it to affect brain function. But you don't know until it happens.
That's
That's
right.
the thing.
That's
You
right.
just don't know.
Yeah. You don't know, and but you're right. I mean, testosterone your body makes, progesterone your body makes,
Yeah.
estrogen your body makes, and then when you're in menopause or perimenopause, those things are dropping and going crazy. So it is something at least that you would be supplementing your body with that
Yeah.
it's already
Right.
made. So,
Well, I think another thing that's confusing to me is I remember when my grandfather would go to the doctor and they'd say, your cholesterol's up. Change your diet a little bit. You need to snack on nuts and you need to do this and that. And he would do that for a couple of months. snack on certain kinds of nuts and change the way he ate, and he would go back and his cholesterol would be back down.
Mhm.
So I wish I would have known, but why would I have asked back then? If that was his total cholesterol, I'm sure it was.
Right.
What was his LDL versus the HDL? Like, why was his able to change
Mhm.
with a diet and mine's not? Because, see, I read that a lot of the LDL, it's not just linked to food. It can be genetic,
It is.
it can be
Yeah.
hormonal. And so
Mhm.
sometimes the exercise and the diet is not going to affect it
Move it.
enough
Yep.
for it to be in a healthy zone.
Yep.
Whereas the triglycerides and things you can,
Mhm.
it is easily affected by
Yeah.
the diet and exercise. So I just thought, it was so easy, it seemed like for him to get it regulated, and then he'd be fine for a bit, and then it might go back up, and then he'd be fine for a bit. But
Mhm.
that's all I ever remember him having to do was watch his cholesterol every now and then.
Yeah. And, with blood sugar, you have that A1C indicator that gives you kind of, hey, this is what the last 3 months of your blood sugar
Yeah,
is like an average. I wish they had one like that for cholesterol to look at your total cholesterol, the good, the
yeah.
bad, the triglycerides, everything to understand like what's the trend.
I think the cholesterol, from what I'm understanding from my cardiologist, is that is going to take time to
Mhm.
adjust. It's not gonna be just within days. It's gonna be weeks and months and all that. So I have been moving in a positive direction as far as my health goes. But
Mhm.
man, it is tough to move at a snail's pace, even when you tell yourself that's what you need to do
Mhm.
for it to be sustainable for yourself and not get burnt out. It's still so tough and can be so frustrating.
Yeah, I can say that because, like I said, I'm very results
Yeah,
oriented. And I'm very quick to be like, well, this isn't working. Let's try something else.
yeah.
Um, the next thing on my list is, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit through the other points, but mental health and emotional well being. So, women have higher rates of anxiety, depression. We've talked about this before, burnout, which is
Mhm.
especially being in that midlife sandwich generation when you're dealing with hormones, caregiving roles, life transitions, all of those contribute and there's still a stigma, unfortunately, in treatment, with different communities. And, women they tend to be the heavy lifting. You're worried about planning meals, grocery shopping. A lot of women contribute to the bills as
Mhm.
far as like, I'm going to sit down and pay the bills. Um, Calling a repairman if something happens, planning the birthday party, going to pick up the parents, getting them to the doctor, like all these things that the major heavy load, the heavy lifting and the mental load is on the woman.
Mhm.
And so when you reach that burnout, when you're dealing with aging parents and still kids and a job and bills and responsibilities, that can really take a toll. And I think women overall feel, especially in our generation, feel like, well, I just need to handle it
Mhm.
and just keep pushing forward. I do believe that's true in a lot of cases that you don't need to just sit down and suck your thumb every time something happens, but there is a case for, okay, this is too much.
Mhm.
And this is more than one person can handle alone. And there should not be a stigma about you seeing a therapist, getting medication, doing the things that you need to do to take care of yourself
Right.
emotionally.
It's also hard because at least for me, when we were growing up, my family didn't go to the doctor for everything.
Hmm.
We rarely went, but we were rarely sick.
Yep.
So we would go if we were sick or if we needed to get shots or something like that.
Hmm.
We didn't run to the doctor every time we had a
Hmm.
sniffle.
Yep.
And that's just what I grew up being used
Hmm.
to. And
Same.
you don't know any differently. So when you become an adult and you feel worn down, or a little bit sick, you think, push through it, or you take some over the counter medication and you don't go and see a doctor
Yep.
because you feel like it's not needed. You don't need to. You can give yourself time to get through it because that's what you did when you were younger.
Right. Yeah. Or I'll go lay down and take a nap and drink some Gatorade and
Yeah.
I'll move on about my day. Um, that is true, especially for Gen X. I think there are some younger generations that feel like they have to, run to the doctor for
Well,
everything.
my kids will tell you that we did not. So
Yeah.
I definitely carried over what my mom
Yeah.
did with my kids. And so they'll even joke about it now. We're like, my ankle was broken and mom didn't even take me to the doctor
Oh
or
yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
because I was like, it's fine. It's just bruised, and they
Well,
have a cracked ankle.
yeah. Well, my oldest, he had a lot of allergies, asthma, eczema, all the things
Yeah.
when he was little, and it was constantly something. My youngest, I truly, and I'm not exaggerating, he will tell you this. There was a 6-year stretch where he did not go to the doctor.
I
I
believe it.
mean, not even for a wellness check.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, hey, is he still alive? They're calling from the office. Is he still living?
Yes.
But he didn't even go to the doctor for probably 6
Yeah.
years. Like, didn't have it
Yeah.
wasn't sick, but also if he got sick, it was like a 2-day cold
Right.
and he was
Right.
pushing on with his life. And
Yeah.
so it's yeah.
I remember getting those calls too, where you get an email, it's time for, so and so's annual checkup. And I'm just like, why would I go and pay a copay
Yeah.
for you just to talk to him? He's fine.
It's fine.
So I could say the same for my kids. I can't tell you how many years went by where they didn't go, but I just
Yeah.
felt like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Especially when
mean,
you're having to pay for it.
Does he need a blue form for school?
Right.
Because otherwise I'm not coming. And I'll
Exactly.
Venmo you the $30 if you'll just
Exactly.
fill out the form and fax it
Exactly.
to the school. I'm not coming.
Some people may sit here and think, Lisa, why would I care who you follow on social media if you're only down 5 pounds in 8 months? But if you are interested in just listening to people that know what they're talking about, and I think if you're really honest with yourself, you can tell who is out there BSing and who's not.
Yeah.
If you follow someone long enough and you can really see the lifestyle that they live, I mean, obviously, who knows? Because everything is, always not as it seems on social media. But I really tend to follow people that I feel like live by what they say. So, some people that I would suggest, if anyone is interested, we've talked about her before, that Jolie McLeod. Is who I started following. She is our age,
Mm-hmm.
and she is like a personal trainer, certified in yoga. I think she did corporate wellness for a while. She's been in this industry for like 30 years. If you
And she
go
looks
back,
great.
she looks great. And she has the pictures to prove it because she gained 25 pounds from menopause
Mhm.
and went and had blood work done, found a doctor that worked for her, got her hormones in check,
Yes.
and then really doubled down along with the hormones on her exercise and
Mhm.
diet. And she looks great. And she's got transformation pictures just a year apart.
Mhm.
And she looks great. And she is, how do I put this? She's not too big to where she won't respond back to you. I have messaged her on Instagram, I can't tell you how many times, and she always messages me back.
Wow.
She will message you, and she's even like left me a voice text on the message before because she was out walking when I had a question about her workout plan. So she just said it on there. So she will get back with you so
Mhm.
she can be very engaging,
Mhm.
which is helpful, if you don't abuse it. I've talked about Ashley Conrad before. She is a personal trainer as well. She played basketball at USC. She was in medical school for a bit. I think she got her or she was getting a degree in like nutrition and some other kind of exercise. and she dropped out of medical school, if I'm remembering correctly, to focus on her business.
Mhm.
And she ended up getting some celebrity clients, which I know can be a red flag for some people, but I have followed her for a long time, and if you saw her and saw her body, she's in her 40s. I mean, she is as clean as she can be. She is no nonsense. She does a lot on Instagram. She's even responded to me before. I did her program a couple years ago. Again, if I would have given it 100%, I think I would have seen different results.
Mhm.
But she is also like a science nerd.
Mhm.
So she really gets into how the body is working and why. And
Right.
she does talk a lot about hormones
Mhm.
and how that affects how you feel and how you look. She focuses a lot on sleep,
Mhm.
but she's really good because she likes to explain how the body's working and why, which is good for me because I
Good
like to
for
know
me
the whys,
too.
like we were talking
Yeah.
earlier with the beans,
Mhm.
attaching to the cholesterol. And then another guy I just recently started following, and I will say, I've said this about another girl on here, but I will say his mouth is awful. There's
Mhm.
sometimes I have trouble listening to him
Mhm.
because he does have such a foul mouth, but he has a kinesiology degree. He was a professional basketball player and played overseas, and now he does personal training, and his business is Thrive. So his name's Ryan Reed, and it's Ryan Reed Thrive. So I've started following him, and he caters a lot to women. So all
Mhm.
of his videos are to women, but he also goes a little bit farther into like the mental side of it. So one thing I've learned from him, well, he shows a lot of videos on your form and what
Mhm.
not to be doing and what to be doing. So he's like, learn it, unlearn it. But he has a few choice words in there.
Sure.
So he shows you how to do it and how not to do it. But he also talks about how women don't give themselves enough credit and that we can probably do a lot more than we think we do, like for strength training.
Mhm.
And he has I don't wanna say classes, but like weekend retreats
Mhm.
where you can go, and anyway, it's just a whole deal, but he said, "I guarantee you, you can do more. You can lift more than what you think." And since listening to him, when I work out in the garage, I have really upped my weight in the past week or 2 on my legs. Now with arms, you might could only go up like 2.5 pounds or 5 pounds depending on what you're doing, but you would be surprised on what you can do with leg strength when it comes to your quads and your
Mhm.
glutes. I've been using a machine downstairs, and I had to keep adding to it the other day, and I was doing, like, quad extensions, and I was doing 50 pounds, and I
Mhm.
could have gone up on it.
Mhm.
So, I think the positive that I'm getting from him is you can do more than you think you can do,
Mhm.
and don't be afraid to try it. And that progressive overload, which
Mhm.
is a lot of what Jolie talks about, is what's going to build the muscle.
Mhm.
It's not doing HIIT all the time and constantly using 5 or 8 pound dumbbells for everything that you do. I mean, yes, it's exercise and it's going to help keep you in shape. But as far as like building that muscle, tearing down those muscle fibers and building it back, you're not going to get that done with 5 and 8 pound weights
Mhm.
over the course of like several months. If you're starting out at 5, okay, and then you get up to 8 and then 10 and then 15, but you've just got to push yourself, or I'll say me, and that's what I'm trying to do now is rein in my food a little bit more and really push myself more when I'm working out and do heavier weights, which is hard because I don't want to do it to begin with.
Mhm.
Up your weight.
I do hit all the time. That's all I do, 3 or 4 days a week. Um,
And that's
that
great. I'm not saying that's
No,
not
but I'm
great for
saying
you.
that's what works for me. Like, I don't wanna go to a gym and walk around wondering what I should
Yeah,
do.
right.
Like, I know the exercises, like, I've got some dumbbells and I've got some bands, and I could do that at
Yeah.
home. But the discipline that it takes when you've been working all day and all that to not want to just sit on the couch
Sure.
instead of doing that,
Right.
that HIIT class works for me. But I'm glad it's not cardio every day
Right.
like that. But um, I I know I've surprised myself at some times I can do much heavier weights.
Right.
But I think even like the squats, because of menopause and also I have micro tears in my knees, like I feel like my knee is
Same.
146. I
Same.
make fun of that at the gym, but you're right. We can always do more than we think we can.
Well, and I think everyone's goal is different. Like for me, a HIIT workout would be great for me. It's exercise, it's getting my heart rate up. There's not going to be a downside to it. So I don't mean that as if,
Oh no.
people don't need to be doing HIIT.
No.
For me, what my goal is to lose fat and tone up. And
Mhm.
I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to go overboard on the protein.
Yeah.
But I have got to gain muscle. I've
Mhm.
always been very slender, so I've not had a lot of muscle tone, and
Mhm.
that's what I'm trying to get, and
Yeah.
that's what I need.
Yeah.
So for me, progressive overload is what I want to do, and that's what I feel like is best for me. And
Mhm.
if I go to a HIIT class, I'm not getting that.
Mhm.
And I think I've mentioned this before. It's hard to do that when you're going station to station and you've only got 10 or 15 seconds in between each station once you rotate.
Mhm.
And, and when you're actually doing it and you're moving from here to there and there's other people in your group and you're all sharing the weights,
Mhm.
it's hard to figure out what weight that you need for that exercise. Also,
In
when you're
such a quick
sharing,
time.
yeah, and you're sharing with someone else. Um, and then for me, that progressive overload is like when I'm doing 3 sets of something.
Mhm.
And you don't always get that in HIIT. I mean, you do repeat,
Mhm.
your exercises when you're doing that. But again, that's just not what I'm wanting to do.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm having to do that
Yeah.
progressive overload and,
Yeah.
and up the weights.
Yeah. And I will say HIIT is not for everybody anyway. And I have seen before and afters of someone saying, "Hey, here I was when I was addicted to HIIT.
Yeah.
I worked out 4 or 5 days a week, killed myself because you go pretty hard on some days in
Yeah.
like 30 minutes or 40 minutes. And then you're doing that 3 or 4 days a week, and then here's me when I just went to the gym and worked out." So, I mean, I think everybody's body is different. And again, I may be back on next season saying, "Hey, I've quit HIIT,"
Right.
but I've tried to quit it before, and I think for me, I know that it's either HIIT or I'm gonna be sitting on the
Nothing.
couch,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that's where I am right now. That may not be where I am in a year.
Well, some of it is also your personality.
Mhm.
I think you prefer to be around other people and you have that camaraderie when you're
Mhm.
exercising, and it does make it more fun. And, it's almost like you're getting to, I don't want to say socialize, but you're doing it with
Yes.
someone.
Yes, I'd
And,
agree with that.
and I didn't dislike that,
Mhm.
but for me, it can be a distraction.
Yeah.
Um, Especially because sometimes when you and I would go, we would get cracked up and get tickled or talk about this
Shocker.
or that. So
I'm the reason Lisa doesn't do it.
no, but or I don't know, you just like I said, I would feel rushed or whatever. And when I'm here by myself,
Mhm. You
I
can take your
I
time.
focus more. I have my list and I'm checking off and I'm keeping up with my weights. And you can't do that in a HIIT class. Which
Mhm.
again, we're probably thinking, well, I can't really tell that you've been doing that because you're only down 5 pounds. But again, I'm making progress.
Yeah.
So you do have to figure out what works for you and what your goal is.
Right. Well, just to kind of round us out, because I know we're at time, I'll just read these off. And a lot of these are kind of roll up under that master thing that I talked about with menopause and perimenopause and heart disease and all of that. But just a few more notes that I had is, you know, reproductive health conditions. And we're not in that era right now. But the reason that I had a hysterectomy when I was in my 30s was endometriosis. So that there are a lot of women that struggle with that. And sometimes that takes years to diagnose. Fibroids, polycystic ovary syndrome. Then you get into things like bone and joint health. The risk increasingly, increases dramatically during menopause due to estrogen decline. Osteoporosis. We talked about one time I had osteopenia, which is the beginning of
Mhm.
osteoporosis. That's often silent. People don't know about it unless they're doing regular bone scans. Weight, metabolism, and insulin resistance. That's a big one. So, type 2 diabetes, you're much more susceptible to that with your trying to outwork your kitchen and
Yeah.
and and not watching your weight. And I think when you're hormonal and you're not sleeping, it's really easy to get off
Yeah, for
on your
sure.
eating. I know for sure. And this one I think is really interesting. Lipedema. And that's maybe one that we could do a whole nother episode on. And I'm not talking about lymphedema, but lipedema. And I've read about that more and more recently, but it's basically mistaken for obesity and it's like a disproportionate fat. So it primarily is in the legs or arms and it can be painful. You can have easy bruising. It's very under recognized, but there are treatments available for it now. Cancer screening, we've already talked about that, and gaps. So, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, some things are really harder to detect early. We talked about why don't we have PET scans?
Mhm.
And then I would say healthcare bias and underrepresentation. Again, we talked about we wanted to go to women because they would be more likely to understand what we're going through. But, symptoms being dismissed as emotional or stress related. Pain is often undertreated compared to men. Um, and then the bigger pattern is how that affects everyone is, delayed diagnosis of things.
Mhm.
Again, we're not being proactive because we say, oh, you just need some Lexapro.
Right.
Um, Lack of research that is specific to women. Your symptoms are minimized or normalized, or it's very fragmented. So they're not focusing on the whole person, especially in women. So you go to a breast specialist and an
Right.
OBGYN, and you go to a cardiologist, and then you go to this. And that's one thing that I have really appreciated. Not that I'm not going to ever have to see anybody else, but that's one thing I really appreciated about this functional medicine lady that I'm seeing is that she's not an OBGYN. So I can see her for other things, but she is the one who's gotten to the root of my hormonal
Yeah.
issues. And so I would love to have her on here if she would agree to it. I
Yeah.
think it'd be fantastic. And she could really educate a lot of our audience.
Well, I think that's a big issue is getting to the root of the problem.
Yes.
And sometimes it takes time and maybe we're impatient or a doctor's impatient or we just don't push it hard enough,
Hmm.
but we've got to start getting to the root of the problems.
Yes. Agreed. Because if you don't know what the root is,
Yeah.
you're just shoving pills at it. It's not getting better. Oftentimes it's getting worse. And then you end up with a lot of other compounding issues.
Yeah.
Well, another great conversation. As always, I love to talk about women's health, and I think it's so vital, especially with our age.
Yeah. I agree.
So,
Good conversation.
yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you next
Y'all
week.
have a good week. Bye.
Bye.